this is who I am. I like to ride my bike. I like to push myself and experience things. And if I'm going to be able to have this third opportunity of life, you know, I want to make sure that I'm doing it the way that I feel is the way that I want to do it. So my name is Mike Cohen, 35 years old. Was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which is the cancer of the bone marrow. I had 2.5 years of chemotherapy at the age of 18. So I was cancer-free at the age of 21-ish. So from 18 to 21, I was, you know, had the chemotherapy, then was done, completely done. So training at that point was starting over. I mean, I was from, you know, zero. Like my little brother, who's 4 years younger than me, actually helped me out of the car, physically picked me up when I first was discharged and helped me out of the car. I mean, that just kind of shows you physically where I was. The second that I realized that I was cancer-free, I realized then that I had a reason to be here, and I was overachieving. And now I started seeing what was possible, and it turned my interest in cycling to an obsession of cycling. I got a job at a bike shop because I just fell in love with cycling. I'm like, I want to learn as much as I can. And really, like, knowing by far the least out of everybody in the shop, like, knew nothing. But I ended up being salesperson of the year. Ended up going to Mexico to celebrate being the salesperson of the year for Trek. I was doing really well. I got a promotion leading up to this. This is back in 2017. I got back home and I was by myself. My ex-girlfriend at the time was not there. And I had these, like, I made dinner and I had these weird chest pains, like about maybe 25 minutes after eating. I thought maybe it was like indigestion, maybe some gas or something. I don't know. I had tightness right here. And then at one point it got to the point where the left part of my jaw was either in excruciating pain or just like numb. Like I could barely feel this part of my face. So I'm like, I think I'm having a heart attack. And so I text my brother, I text my ex-girlfriend, because I'm like, how do you tell your younger brother and your girlfriend at the time over a text, because I couldn't talk, that I'm having a heart attack? I just told them, get home, get here as soon as possible. I needed to go to the hospital. Something's wrong. I got onto the couch. I was sitting on the couch. I'm like, stay awake, stay awake. I remember saying to myself out loud, stay awake, sit up, stay awake. Do not lay down. And then they got there, they scooped me up, rushed me immediately to the ER, and they confirmed almost immediately that I was having a heart attack. And as soon as the room cleared, you know, my ex-girlfriend was crying. There was like 10, 15 people in the room. I'm like, there was a lot of people there. And I remember it was just my brother and I, and I took my wallet out of my pocket and I threw it at him. I'm like, next chapter. And I remember asking the nurse, I'm like, do you think I'm going to make it? Like, am I going to die tonight? And she said, the fact that you're here right now and you're fully conscious and you haven't lost consciousness at all, she's like, that's a major step in a really good direction. The Friday after that happened, it was literally a week, like maybe 4 days after my heart attack, I was was scheduled for surgery, had 12 hours of surgery, and they installed a pump. And the pump was in the left ventricle of my heart, and it was powered by an external power source. And they're like, yeah, you're not gonna be able to ride. Like, not with this condition, like, you crazy? So, like, it was devastating for me. Like, I thought, like, at that point, and then looking at my prognosis with having this, I'm like, I was prepared to having the LVAD in me for indefinite. But that was, like, the doctors, nurses, cardiologists, and so forth, the intention of LVAD is a bridge to transplant. I remember waking up and there was like a little click. Like, I remember feeling a click. And I'm like, that's weird. I know I have hardware in me right now, but like that's not a common sound. So they're like, okay, well, you can't have this pump. You could either get another LVAD or you need to get a heart transplant. So that put me on top of the list. Any heart that came in that was acceptable by the cardiologist team would have been mine. You know, it's a pretty serious, you know, position that you're in when you're waiting for a heart, and then if and when you get that call. But then, so when the nurse came in to discharge me, literally, I called my ex-girlfriend. She was preparing to come in to pick me up and everything. They're like, we have good news and bad news. They're like, you're not going home. I'm like, okay, that's bad news. The good news is that we found you a heart. I'm like, oh. So at that point, the world changes. Go back into bed. I'm not moving. I'm like, I'm not moving until they come down to wheel me down. We had a Nintendo 64 going, playing GoldenEye, Super Mario Kart, all that stuff with my friends. They started working me up. They get, you know, all the, you know, the final blood test, the final blood to make sure they have enough blood of yours and all that stuff, and they wheeled me down, and my friends, my ex-girlfriend and her family was pretty much following us to the elevator. And that was the realest part for me, was when they closed the elevator and I saw my friends. Because when you go through a surgery like that, and this is the second time I had it, like, you know that there's a chance you possibly cannot come back. It's there. Like, it's not, I'm not being dramatic. It's just, you're going through such a serious surgery, it's possible. But that wasn't the case. And I was wheeled down. I woke up, and I woke up with a new heart. Once I was able to be discharged, that was when I was like, well, when can I get back on the bike? Because I'm like, this is going to be a major part of my recovery. And for weeks, I would be just like very cautiously looking at the bike in the corner. It was in the corner of the room. I just started getting stronger and stronger in my workouts. And then I asked the PT, I'm like, is it cool if I go on that? And like, I did the whole like, saddle adjust, and it wasn't even a bike. It was just like one of those upright, like really bulky, exercise bikes. But I adjusted the saddle, I adjusted my leg. I was making sure like, the ball of my foot was lined up, and I'm like, I missed this. And that was when I'm like, I'm going to do this. I want to meet my heart donor's family. The major guiding spark behind everything I do is like to know that he's proud of what I'm doing. And then I fully committed to do the ride to meet him and to meet his family. And we put it all together and eventually got to Jacksonville. Didn't ride the 3,168 miles this time, because the person I was riding with wasn't exactly a big fan of riding on the road. So we spent a lot of time kind of commuting through the really gnarly areas. Let's just call it, for his sake. I didn't care how I got there. I would have took a train if I had to. It was just a matter of showing his family that I was a man of my word, and that I am the kind of person to do something special for something that matters a lot to me. Just a feeling of seeing the sign, like as you get to the Jacksonville National Cemetery, and then turning in, and then eventually seeing his family, that like the crowd of people where his plot was. You don't realize what life is when you're in your own situation, yeah, I received the heart, but then they lost their son. It hit me. It hit me like, this is real. Like, this is my heart now, and I was just beyond grateful. So I feel like when I met them, having that hug with his mom, having that hug with his stepdad and his sisters, his grandmother. I mean, we all said after we left there, it was like the most love-filled experience that I've ever had with complete strangers. Like, we never met these people before, and I felt like they were just people I haven't seen for a while, but that I love. The love was there, and it was just beautiful. It was a beautiful, I mean, it's obviously not an ending, but it was a beautiful ending to such a mystery for me. So yeah, that's how I decided to ride across the country for a second time with a different heart.